The moment tension between the United States and China erupts into open warfare, the world would change forever. The first 24 hours of such a conflict would determine not just the outcome of the battle, but the survival of nations, the stability of economies, and the fate of humanity itself. The entire planet would feel the shockwaves as the two most powerful nations on Earth unleash their military machines in a contest of technology, intelligence, and endurance. In those first crucial hours, decisions made within seconds could shape the world for centuries to come. Every satellite in orbit, every radar system, and every nuclear warning system would be on full alert as the world watches the dawn of a new kind of war, a war too fast for human control and too devastating for human survival. Across the Pacific, the first signs of confrontation would emerge in the skies and seas. American carrier strike groups stationed in the South China Sea would suddenly detect waves of Chinese anti-ship missiles screaming toward them at hypersonic speed. Simultaneously, U.S. stealth bombers would take off from Guam and Diego Garcia, heading toward key Chinese naval installations on Hainan Island and the eastern coast. Drones, fighter jets, and satellite-guided cruise missiles would fill the air, each targeting the enemy's radar, communications, and defenses. The ocean would become a battlefield of invisible threats, submarines moving silently beneath the waves, ready to launch torpedoes or nuclear-armed missiles. The first hour of combat would be total chaos, with both sides trying to blind and cripple the other before the main attack begins. Inside the nerve centers of Washington and Beijing, the atmosphere would be electric and suffocating. Commanders would be surrounded by flashing screens, streaming data from across the globe. Every move would be calculated and second-guessed, because one wrong order could trigger a nuclear escalation. Both governments would be activating cyber units, unleashing digital assaults designed to disrupt satellites, jam GPS systems, and crash power grids. The war wouldn't just be fought with missiles, it would be fought with information. The internet would slow or collapse under the pressure of cyber strikes, global banking systems could freeze, and communications between nations might become impossible. It would be the world's first truly global digital blackout. Meanwhile, in the skies above Taiwan, the air would burn with dogfights between US F-35s and Chinese J-20 stealth fighters. Both aircraft are among the most advanced ever built, relying on radar invisibility and artificial intelligence-assisted targeting systems. Every engagement would push the limits of technology and human reflexes. Below, anti-aircraft systems would light up the night sky, while missiles streak toward radar signatures detected in the distance. The goal for both sides in these opening hours would not be conquest, it would be to destroy the enemy's ability to see, think, and respond. Control of information and space would mean control of the battlefield. China's early moves would likely focus on seizing Taiwan and denying U.S. access to the Western Pacific. Using swarms of drones, missile strikes, and electromagnetic pulse weapons, they would aim to paralyze American communications and naval coordination. Chinese cyber units could penetrate U.S. defense networks, spreading false information and confusing radar readings. They would attempt to sink or disable at least one U.S. carrier group in the South China Sea to send a powerful message that the era of American dominance in Asia is over. At the same time, China's massive rocket force would unleash hundreds of ballistic missiles toward U.S. bases in Japan, Guam, and possibly even Australia. The precision of these strikes would test the effectiveness of American missile defense systems to their absolute limits. On the American side, the response would be swift and overwhelming. Long-range bombers and stealth drones would cross into Chinese airspace at high altitude, using radar cloaking technology to evade detection. Their targets would be airbases, missile silos, and radar installations across China's coastline. Submarines equipped with Tomahawk missiles would strike ports and command centers. The Pentagon would activate its global strike network, using artificial intelligence to predict Chinese troop movements and missile trajectories. In space, American satellites would maneuver to avoid Chinese anti-satellite weapons, while deploying jamming systems to blind enemy sensors. The United States would also begin reinforcing its allies in the Indo-Pacific, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and the Philippines, each becoming critical nodes in a rapidly expanding battlefield. As hours pass, the war's performance would hinge not just on firepower but on endurance. The speed of modern warfare would make traditional command structures almost obsolete. Artificial intelligence and automated defense systems would have to make life-or-death decisions faster than human operators could react. Hypersonic missiles, traveling at more than 5 times the speed of sound, would give targets only minutes, sometimes seconds, to respond. Mistakes in the data or false readings could result in devastating misfires or civilian casualties. The battlefield would stretch from the depths of the Pacific Ocean to the dark reaches of outer space, creating a kind of total warfare humanity has never witnessed before. In the midst of this chaos, safety measures would barely hold. Early warning systems designed to prevent accidental nuclear launches would be tested as false alarms and miscommunication spread through the fog of war. Both sides would maintain constant communication through secret back channels, hoping to avoid a nuclear mistake. Yet, as cyber attacks disrupt those same communication lines, the risk of misunderstanding would grow dangerously high. One radar glitch or intercepted message could trigger retaliation before verification. Underground bunkers in Washington, Beijing, and Moscow would go on high alert, preparing for the unthinkable. Civilian life would also descend into crisis within hours. Major cities in Asia and the United States could experience power blackouts, internet failures, and food shortages as logistics chains break down. Financial markets would collapse almost instantly. Global stock exchanges would suspend trading to prevent total economic meltdown. Oil prices would skyrocket, and panic would spread through every corner of the world. Air travel would be halted, communication satellites would fall silent, and millions of civilians would seek shelter, unsure whether the next explosion would be nuclear. Governments around the globe would scramble to declare neutrality, while others would choose sides, NATO aligning with the US, and Russia possibly supporting China in a proxy role. The unique aspect of this confrontation lies in its speed and technological sophistication. Unlike the wars of the past that dragged on for years, a US-China conflict would unfold in days, perhaps even hours. Autonomous drones, AI-controlled missile systems, and hypersonic projectiles would make it impossible for diplomacy to keep pace with destruction. It would be the ultimate test of modern technology, machines built by humans now determining whether humans survive. No general or politician would be able to fully control what happens once the first salvo is launched. In the first 24 hours alone, the combined firepower released could equal the destruction of multiple world wars. The economic cost of such a conflict would be beyond imagination. Both nations are deeply tied to global trade networks, meaning any large-scale war would instantly crash the global economy. The production of critical goods like semiconductors, fuel, and medical supplies would halt. Shipping routes would be blocked, ports destroyed, and supply chains cut. Countries dependent on imported food or energy would face immediate crises. Inflation would skyrocket, unemployment would soar, and the financial system could collapse entirely within days. Trillions of dollars would vanish from global markets, while reconstruction costs could reach unimaginable levels even if the war stopped after just one day. Politically, the war would reshape global power forever. Regional players like India, Japan, and Russia would face enormous pressure to take sides or defend their borders. Europe would experience internal divisions, torn between supporting American allies or avoiding direct involvement. Nuclear-armed nations would be forced into high alert, fearing that any misstep could drag them into the crossfire. The United Nations would struggle to respond as its security mechanisms collapse under the weight of competing vetoes and real-time destruction. Humanity would be reminded how fragile its systems truly are when faced with full-scale superpower confrontation. As the first day draws to a close, neither side would emerge victorious. Both would suffer staggering losses. Entire fleets could be destroyed, airbases reduced to rubble, and cities plunged into darkness. The initial strikes would achieve tactical objectives but no strategic victory. The world would stand on the edge of nuclear escalation, with leaders from both countries faced with impossible choices: escalate or de-escalate, retaliate or negotiate, destroy or survive. The psychological toll would be immense. Billions of people would stay glued to screens, watching live coverage of the world's descent into chaos. The fear of extinction would become real for the first time since the Cold War. In those hours, the future of humanity would depend not on military power, but on restraint. The true measure of leadership would be found in the decision to stop before it's too late. The weapons developed to protect nations could easily become the instruments of their destruction. The cost of pride, nationalism, and ambition could outweigh any possible victory. And if the nuclear threshold were ever crossed, there would be no winners, only survivors living in the ashes of civilization. The aftermath of just one day of all-out war between the United States and China would haunt the world for generations. The environmental damage from missile strikes, the radiation from destroyed reactors, and the collapse of global trade would trigger a humanitarian catastrophe unlike any before. The global balance of power would shift, but the price would be unbearable. Humanity would learn, too late, that the real battle was never for dominance, but for survival. The first 24 hours of a US-China war would not just decide the fate of nations, it would decide the fate of the world. It would reveal the terrifying truth that in the age of technology, destruction travels faster than reason, and peace is the only shield strong enough to protect humanity from itself.